Hi everyone, my name is Rhiannon from Blue Dog Board Games, and today we're going to be going back to my solo blog series that I have been doing over the last year or so, and going over all the games that I have played solo and a few multiplayer. And usually I do it monthly, or I had been doing it monthly, then turned to bi-monthly, and now it seems to have gone to 3-monthly, so I'm sorry about that. I honestly don't know where the time, like when one minute I'm thinking absolutely I need to get another one out, another blog out, and then suddenly it's the end of June. Now it's July, the day I'm filming this. So apologies that I haven't covered one, but maybe that's a good thing. I've got more to talk about today in the games that I'm going to go over. So I haven't actually done one of these videos since March, I believe. March was the last month that I covered. So we will very briefly be touching on what I played in April, May and June. But I'm not going to go into any detail about the games that I have talked about in detail on the channel before. I'm going to be focusing on newer games to the series. So let's kick off with April's gaming. April was actually a pretty good gaming month for me. I played 40 hours and that's 35 different games. So the only one that I haven't really spoken about before is Glass Road, and we're going to be speaking about that one in particular. I do actually have a solo playthrough of that one on the channel as well, and I will link that one down below if you were interested in finding a bit more about Glass Road. Glass Road was part of my solo Uwe Rosenberg series. I'm also trying to play a lot of solo Uwe games, and I'm going to be ranking them very shortly on my channel. And Glass Road, I have heard quite good things about it in terms of some people have said is their favorite Uwe game to play solo. So I was very, very excited to try this one. And I understood it was a much smaller footprint, a lot less difficult to get out. It's quite easy to set up and tear down. And it was just like a quick, snappy, really satisfying solo experience. So if you are unaware, Glass Road is another Uwe Rosenberg game that is not actually a worker placement game this time. This is a game that you are resource managing. You have 2 dials where you are juggling your resources of glass and bricks and the precursors to those. So the dials have numbers all around them, and you're going to be gaining and spending different types of resources. And any time that you have put loads of precursor in and there's no glass or brick, any of your end product, the wheel is going to be spinning. So you have a certain amount of control, but not complete control over when you are going to be producing your end products. You're going to be gaining points at the end of the game according to your buildings that you are purchasing with building materials, as well as any leftover ingredients that you may have that are more valuable. There are certain things that I did like about this game, and the resource wheels were really quite fun to work with. The fact that you don't have total control over when they are moving was a very fun puzzle. It was a bit different to how it worked in Oranienburger Canal. Oranienburger Canal, they had just one wheel that you were controlling, resource wheel, and you actually had the choice about whether or not you turned it. Using money to spend, you could choose to turn the wheel and manipulate the amounts of resources that you had. Whereas Glass Road, I actually quite appreciated the fact that you did need to sort of think about controlling which materials when you were going to gain them, because some of them could act as a stopper. So just in case you didn't want to move the wheel, you could not gain that specific resource. That was a very interesting part of the puzzle, and I really enjoyed that. Of course, as well, this one plays in about 20 minutes or so. So it was a really good shorter game if that is what you were after. You could even play it back to back twice, and the setup and teardown is so quick. So from that perspective, they're all pretty positives. I think I err on the side of I like a good in-depth game to really take me a good hour or so. So I think I steer away from the shorter games a little bit, but I absolutely understand that that is a massive positive to a lot of gamers. However, this game, Glass Road, just didn't do it for me in the long run, I don't think. I think it just lacked a little bit of interest. So there's a lot of buildings that you do have out and about to purchase, but I just felt as a solo game, there wasn't quite enough turnover of these buildings to see them all and to really get a good engine going. So there is a card that you can use in the game to really sort of enhance that turnover of buildings a little bit, but I just don't feel like it pushed it enough. And I just felt underwhelmed, I think, at the end of the game after 20 minutes, 25 minutes or so. And you may purchase, I was ending up purchasing 6 or 7 different buildings I didn't feel like I achieved like a massive amount. When I was looking at what I had actually built up, it was a little underwhelming. And so compared to some other, grandiose games where you look at what you've built and there's like buildings everywhere, everything everywhere, you got tons of resources. This definitely wasn't that sort of game. And so I think it just flopped a little bit for me. It's not a bad game, just didn't quite hit the nail on the head from a solo perspective for me, I think. But I will absolutely rank that one in my final ranking series, and you'll see where it ends up for me for a solo game. I also didn't like it quite so much multiplayer either. The card system was quite difficult to get your head around, and in the rulebook it says that you can sort of use the way that you play the cards, because when you play a card, you're sort of forcing your opponent to also play the same card if they've selected it into their hand that turn. And the rulebook says, oh, you can, use that as a bit of a puzzle. You're meant to be trying to manipulate when you don't want your partners to play their cards as well. And I just never really felt that was necessary. Maybe it is in a higher player count game, but I never felt that was an interesting part of the puzzle for me. A lot of the time I'm focused on what I'm doing, and I want to focus on me doing well rather than manipulating what somebody else is doing, unless it's like a really crucial part of my strategy. And so that flopped a little bit as well for me. But anyway, we'll go into Glass Road a little bit more. If you wanted to see what I thought in a lot of detail, I will pop the review down below and you can have a look at that one. Other than that, April was a month that was completely filled with Frosthaven. This was when I was finishing off my plays of Frosthaven. I spent 33 hours playing Frosthaven as well. I played some Three Sisters, Witchcraft again, the card game. I really enjoyed Witchcraft. I played Paperback Adventures that I hadn't got out for a little while. I believe I'm stuck on book 2 in that one at the moment. I think I had a bit of a failure at the end of my book 1, so my character is not quite so healthy as what I wanted her to be for starting book 2, and so I am struggling. It's a surprising challenge, Paperback Adventures. I didn't expect it to be quite so up there in terms of difficulty, and that's definitely not a bad thing, and I can adjust it if I need to in terms of difficulty. Really enjoying it though. And At the Gates of Loyang made an appearance as well as my favourite game, Keystone North America. I say favourite game, I need to do a favourite games of all time list at some point, but I think I have 2 different favourite games. I've got like a in-depth, I've got 4 hours to play a game mindset of that's my favourite game versus I want to play a game but I am really tired and don't want to think much game. And Keystone North America is that game for me. So moving on to May, we've got a couple of new games that I want to speak about. May was a slightly less good gaming month for me. I played for 36 hours and that's over 45 different plays. I lie. I thought Frosthaven was finished off in April. I finished off playing it in May. I say finished off, I didn't finish it. We're still, I reckon, maybe halfway through the campaign. There's a lot there. Actually, towards the end, we were getting quite frustrated with it. The difficulty seems to have just spiked heavily. We found that we were losing pretty much every single scenario, badly. Not even we'll do better next time, I'm sure. It was a very bad fail. And so we're starting to manipulate the difficulty in ways that it wasn't really meant to be manipulated. And so, yeah, we were having a bit of a hard time with Frosthaven. So it'll be interesting when we do get it back out again, because absolutely we're going to finish it. Whether or not it was just a bad time for us, or whether or not we do really struggle when we get it out again. Because, yeah, it was an uphill battle. Anyway, the first game that I do want to talk about for May is a game called Tainted, Grail, The Fall of Avalon. So I will very briefly sort of describe what this game is like. You've probably seen pictures of it or heard of this one before. It is quite a well-known big adventure exploration game by Awakened Realms. So the idea is that you are taking the body of like an anti-hero. So the idea is that the heroes of your town that are trying to like save the world and save their town and area have gone. They have left. We've got menhirs, I believe they're called, which are big statues which watch over the whole area you're in. So each like town and village that you're going to be exploring around will usually have a menhir or is nearby a menhir statue. And these are losing power. and nobody really knows why. They're losing power, and so everything, once the Menhir statue loses its power completely, there's going to be destruction in all of the areas, and I don't really know what ominous things there are. It's called the Wordness, I believe. So if you go out into the Wordness, you're in a lot of danger. So the Wordness is coming in. And so the idea is that you are taking the role of one of these townsfolk. Like, I believe I'm a blacksmith's apprentice. Bjor, I believe my name is. And I have like a festering wound that's going to be hampering me on my story. But it is a completely exploration narrative game where you're completing quests and entering into villages and having a bit of a diplomatic conversation. You are collecting like magic and trying to activate these Menhirs again to allow you to explore safely or safer in these regions. There's a lot of different mechanisms going on. It's quite a big game to get your head around. I have only played the first couple of chapters so far, and so I'm going to be slowly making my way through this one. But so far, I'm having a really fabulous time with it. The storytelling and the story that it's and the atmosphere it's creating is so good, so atmospheric. It's really sort of unexpected, and it's not like set in your typical fantasy setting. You're not seeing elves that are going to be coming through the trees at you and going to hit you with their arrows, or at least not yet. It doesn't feel like that typical setting for fantasy, so it's quite refreshing. And it's also refreshing that you are somebody that isn't particularly special. In fact, the special power that I have is a festering wound, which means every time I lose my energy below a certain level, if I become exhausted, I believe I lose a health. So, and you've got to carefully like manage all of that. You're managing your health and your stamina and your mental capacity, I can't remember what it's called. Terror? Is it terror? Might be terror. It's also sort of set in a little bit of like reality as well. I say reality is reality adjacent. So it's going along the lines of like King Arthur and the Tainted Grail and things like that. So you've got the round table and knights that you're interacting with. So, you know, as much as that is like legend or, you know, in our reality, it's still something that you can actually relate to quite a lot. So I'm quite enjoying that story. And as I said, the story is actually quite intriguing. So you don't quite know what you're going to get, and you don't know how the story is going to unfold. And it definitely seems like there is a lot of replayability here. I had a massive quest and a goal to try and achieve for the quest, and I had no aim. I didn't know where I was going, so I was just wandering around, revealing different cards as you go. Like, you can reveal bigger sections of the map by activating Menhirs. So every time you activate a Menhir by spending resources like magic and food and things like that, they activate and it reveals all the cards around them. So even diagonals, just the ones adjacent to it. And so you can walk around all of these areas and, you know, try and like interact with the villagers and things like that. But I had this quest and I was like, I don't know where I'm going. It's given me a massive goal, which I would anticipate to perhaps take me 40 hours in terms of gameplay. I was like, this is a big goal. And then suddenly I revealed something, interacted with something, boom, chapter's done, move on to the next thing. So I'm like, oh, okay, I think there is a big overarching story. You have an idea of what you're trying to achieve as your own humble self, but you're just slowly making your way and slowly making small achievements towards it, and you just don't know it. It's unexpected all the time. And coupled with the really good writing in this, it's been a really fun experience so far. I have implemented a couple of small tweaks. In these games, I do get quite frustrated, very much like Seventh Continent, when you are exploring around and something goes wrong, and that means you've got to redo what you've just done, basically. And sometimes that is a lot of different hours of gameplay, especially Seventh Continent. Some of those curses can take 30 hours to complete. So with Tainted Grail, I found that I have allowed myself a bit of an easier time when it comes to activating the Menhirs, and if something detrimental happens to me and I'm most of the way through a chapter, I would likely ignore it because I'm at the point where I want to see what the story is going to be doing rather than worried so much about honouring the mechanisms of the game. And I expect a lot of people would think that ruins the experience. You may as well just read a book, but I'm having a good time by myself, and it's definitely one that I feel that I can replay with my husband at some point. He's definitely extremely interested in the theme of this one and the look of it, and I think he would enjoy the mechanism and us working together with that. And I definitely feel that there's scope to explore a lot more that you're not going to see in the first round. So I'm really enjoying Tainted Grail at the moment, and I would highly recommend it to people that do really like narrative experiences. And don't be afraid to like house rule things if you're not getting the exact experience that you want out of it. This is one of those games that you can sort of play however you want to and play it however it fits your play style. And then the rest of the games in May, Glass Road, I played another 9 times. It only takes 4 hours for those 9 plays, so really quick game. Genotype, I played 8 different times because I believe I did a playthrough of that one and released that one. So I love Genotype. That's a lot of fun. I think I've talked about Genotype quite a lot in the channel before, but that's just such a satisfying thematic worker placement game. I find the solo mode of that one such a challenge. It's really, really difficult to get a win. Even when implementing one of the changes that I believe has been implemented in a reprint of the game, it just manages to rack up its points so quickly, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. So, but a very satisfying experience. I highly recommend it, and I will pop the solo playthrough of that one down below just in case you wanted to see my thoughts of that one in more depth. Turing Machine, I played 4 times as well. Still love that one. Cascadia and Squire for Hire were played in May as well. And the last one that I want to talk about is a new edition. I found it on sale because my husband and I have been eyeing it up for a little while. This is a 2-player game, so you can play it with multiplayer as well. And I understand that you can now play it solo with some certain editions or new packs. And this is Disney Lorcana. Now, I am not somebody who is a collectible card game person typically. I'm one of those people that I own, and I used to own a lot of Pokemon cards just because they were cute and pretty, and I knew nothing about them other than I liked the shiny ones and the cute creatures. Disney Lorcana is very much the same in terms of I don't really know what's valuable, what's not. I've got no interest in trading anything like that at all, or collecting in any sense, and I'm not going to be deck building. We bought 2 starter decks and just wanted to see what it's about. So if you are unfamiliar with Disney Lorcana is a 2-player game. Typically, I understand you can now play it, or it's got some rules where you can increase the player count. I'm not sure how that really implements well. And I understand there's also a pack that's been released that allows you to play solo against like a big boss character. But Disney Lorcana is essentially a deck building game where you have a deck of cards and you're going to be battling against the other person's deck of cards, which has like you've both got decks of like equal strength, or they should be roughly equal. You're going to be implementing, I think it's called ink, that you can have out on your tableau, and you're going to be using this ink as like a currency to purchase cards from your hand and put them into play. And all of the cards that you have in your hand will have certain powers. So it may give you the ability to like do damage to certain cards to your opponent. It may give you like immunities and things like that. And essentially you are just trying to earn a certain number of points, and the first person to reach that number of points is the winner. So we have only played Disney Lorcana a couple of times so far, but it's exactly what you would expect from a like collectible card game, and it was a lot of fun. It's definitely not a play style that I typically go towards. I do find them quite dry, and it is very much luck of the draw of what you draw from your deck at any one time. So sometimes they are quite frustrating, and you're just waiting for that one card to come out, or you draw too many cards that are high in cost and you don't have enough like turnover of things, ink to get them into play, so it gets quite difficult. So it was something that I completely expected. There's not much to say about it other than if you played like Pokemon, or I've never played Digimon, but I would anticipate Digimon would be mostly the same. They have the same feeling. You are battling head on with each other, trying to like take each other's cards out, gain some number of points. The massive plus to me is that it's all Disney characters, so I really like all the Disney artwork and all of the keywords that they're using because they're quite thematic. that just sort of sets this one apart for me just a little bit. I am a Disney fan, so it was really nice to sort of see all of that implemented in a game. I think I would be interested in playing this one solo as well. I'm not sure that I would sort of pay full price for what the solo mode is sort of going for, just because I also don't necessarily want more stuff. I just want the ability to play solo with whatever deck I'm picking up, and that the 2 decks that I have got don't happen to be the ones that it's implemented solo with. So I'm hoping that there will be a way at some point that allows you to play solo with what you have in your hand. That would be really cool. I can imagine Disney Lorcana is going to be very popular with the younger audience, so I think it is very approachable, and I can anticipate that, you know, even if it's just the collecting aspect, I think that there is a lot of merit here and a lot of replayability. There's a lot of different aspects of the game that you can appreciate. So you can collect, you can collect the cards to start with. You can display them as certain artwork because they look really nice. You can deck build, which is just a hobby in itself, I would argue. And as well, you can play the game. So there's a lot of different things for everyone for Disney Lorcana. And I think that's why it does appeal to quite so many people. You've got, intense war gamers that I have heard have been enjoying Disney Lorcana, all the way down to younger children just wanting to see the pictures. So it's definitely made quite a splash, I think, and it's very popular, and I do understand why. All right, so we're finally at June. June was pretty much, an average gaming month. Again, 40 hours of games, 46 different plays. And the very first one I will not be going into because it is a prototype of a game that I received, and the video of that one is actually being released tomorrow, and so by the time this video releases it will already be out. But it is an expansion for a game that I absolutely love, so hopefully everyone else will really appreciate the love and effort that this company has put into this game as well. I've been having a great time, but the first one that I do want to talk about for the month, I played that one 8 times over 8 hours, and I have no intention of revisiting it at all, is Wayfarers of the South Tigris. So I was a bit shocked about my opinions of Wayfarers of the South Tigris. I was so convinced that I was going to really love it because so many reviewers have hyped this one up a lot, and I respect a lot of their opinions, and this was just not for me. So if you do not know, Wayfarers of the South Tigris is a big, chunky Euro game. The idea is that you are like a cartographer. Is a cartographer like a map maker? Basically, you are an explorer. You are mapping out, charting, having a look around and exploring all of these new areas that you've not yet explored. So you're going to explore all the seas out to, out in the big ocean. You are going across the lands and discovering more and more different towns and cities and big open landscapes. You are also exploring the skies and charting all planets and comets and everything that you are seeing up there. And you are also going to be recruiting like townsfolk into your little clan to enhance your abilities that you're going to get along the way, meet lots of people, that sort of thing. That's the sort of theme of the game. And there's a bit of a mix of mechanisms as well. So you've got worker placement, but you don't necessarily own any of your own meeples. It's like a mixed bag of meeples. If you have a meeple out on the board or on the cards represent the worker placement spots in this game. Somebody else can take that meeple. Nobody owns them. There is a racing aspect to this game. So the end of the game is triggered when you are like on the end spot of this like research track, and a lot of it is actually mostly set collection in the form of symbols on cards. So on your turn, what you will be doing is either placing one of your die onto a die slot that's going to be like in your tableau in front of you. You may also be putting a meeple onto a card as like a worker placement spot, or you'll be resting, and during your rest you will usually be taking back all of your die, but you'll also be journaling, which is the race aspect. So you're trying to hit certain criteria, and then you'll be progressing along this track in order to trigger the end of the game. You also get bonuses along the way along this track, so you may get extra meeples, you may get extra like tiles that's going to score you points at the end of the game, or it may allow you to enhance the number of symbols that you have. There's a few different things that I didn't like about this game, and actually I'm highly respectful of this game on the basis that I can see what an intricate and strategic game this is. And I am so respectful of that from the basis that it has taught me so much about what I don't like in a board game. And it's only taken me, 3 or 4 years now to really start to understand what I do and don't like now. And I think that this game just captures a lot of the ideas that I really don't like. And so all up in a wrapped up package, it's just one that's not for me. The first thing that I didn't particularly like was the triggering of the end game. So the fact that you are playing against automa, and it is known that these automas are quite competitive. They're very difficult. So unless you're playing particularly well, you're going to very much struggle to really keep up the pace with them or even win. And because I struggled to sort of get my head around this game, as well as I'm just generally not a strong player anyway, I was getting absolutely thwarted by these automas, and they were running away and triggering the end of the game before I could even breathe. So that's the first thing that I didn't particularly like, is the fact that there is no set number of rounds in this game, and it is a race aspect. They are going to be triggering the end of the game, or if you've got a strong opponent, they are going to be triggering the end of the game before you may even count to 10. And so it's over before you know it, and you feel very unfulfilled in what you've achieved. So I have definitely learned I don't think I like that. I prefer to know where I stand and when the game is exactly going to end so I can plan accordingly. The other thing that I didn't particularly like was the sort of layout of the board. The worker placement spots were all along the edges of the board. So you have 3 boards that you put all in a line. They will connect. And along the edges, you'll be placing cards in certain slots along the board. And by placing your meeple on the card, you are activating the little icons next to it on the board. So the worker placement spaces are the cards, but the actions that you're going to be taking are on the board. So I found it so disjointed and so difficult to sort of visualize where everything was going to be. I was actually comparing it in my head to A Feast for Odin. A Feast for Odin has so many more worker placement slots and so much going on. It is a very big and looks hugely complicated game, but everything's very well organized in A Feast for Odin, I feel. You know what you're looking at, you can sort of visualize it in your head after you've played it a few times. You know where to look if you want to go whaling, if you want to collect certain wood resources, etc., etc. This game, Wayfarers, I didn't quite know where to look to get anything. It all seemed completely random and disjointed, and there was no sort of similarity between the areas of the board. So you would have certain cards on the right hand side of the board that would be your big scoring cards, multipliers for endgame scoring, but they would have sort of no relation to the worker placement slots that are next to. And those worker placement slots don't have any similarity between them. It's gain 2 coins, or you can gain some provisions to allow you to do more actions, or you may be able to, I can't remember what they are now. I don't know. But they seem to have no relation to each other. So in my head, it was just very disjointed, very difficult to sort of plan and see relationships between these things until you know the game inside out. And quite frankly, I got bored before I even got to that point. It was just very difficult to sort of piece together. The next aspect of the game is the use of the die. So you start the game with 3 different die and you roll them and you keep those values. And your die are associated with your caravan, and in the caravan you may have different symbols that are that give attributes to certain die values. So for example, I believe the number 1, I'm not sure if it's the same across all the boards, they might have differences, but your number 1, if you roll a 1, your 1 has a camel. It sounds really weird, and all of this just didn't quite make sense to me. And your number 6 has a telescope. So basically, if you are placing a number 1 die somewhere, you can also put it in a slot which is free and has no requirements whatsoever. But if you're using a number 1 with the camel, you can put it on a die slot that needs a camel as a payment in order to carry out the rest of the action. And so you can manipulate the caravan in different ways. You can gain new symbols to try and power up your die. You can then start to manipulate your die, increase or decrease the value. I did quite like that aspect. I just found it very restricting certain ways, especially when playing with the automa, The Automa has the ability to buy upgrade tiles and keep them for themselves. And there is a rule. I had to check it on Board Game Geek because the rulebook is, I'll go into the rulebook in a minute. But the Automa is able to purchase multiple copies of the same upgrade tile, which essentially means you are locked out if you can't get there quick enough. And they are expensive and difficult to get sometimes, or sometimes impossible to get. So I actually had a game where I had an end game scoring criteria that I was working towards, and it was like 3 upgrade tiles that were yellow. But the Automa had literally bought all of the upgrade tiles before I could even manage to even min-max. If I was min-maxing, trying to get these upgrade tiles for myself, if there was nothing else I was doing, it was impossible. And so I knew automatically, I was like, I'm going to be, well behind now because there's one of the scoring criteria that I have that is impossible for me. I can't do it now. So I didn't like that aspect either. I feel like this game is just overcomplicated for its own good. There's not enough turnover of cards as well in a solo game, I don't find. There's not really an ability for you to discard them and redraw. There are sun and moon cards in the game, and if you manage to get both of them, you get a massive bonus score. It's very rare that you're going to even see the sun or moon in a one-player game when you're playing against an Automa, no matter seeing both. And again, I felt quite trapped by that. I couldn't get the cards that I needed. I couldn't get the resources that I needed. I didn't know what resources I was collecting because I didn't know what card was going to come out when eventually the Automa managed to refresh it a little bit. It was a mess in my head. I didn't enjoy any of those aspects. And it was only made worse by the fact that I actually felt that the rule book was one of the poorest I have seen in a long time. And I'm so surprised about this because this is not a company that is new to producing games. And I know I'm not sure how much overlap there is between designing, publishing, etc. But the same publishers, Renegade, have also supported or made, I don't know what the right terminology is, Raiders of the North Sea. And that is a super clear rulebook. I know it's a lot simpler of a game, but you know exactly where you're standing with that. But Wayfarers of the South Tigris, I read the rulebook, and it was one of these rulebooks I read, and I was like, I still have zero clue of how to play this game. And it only got worse when you then were looking at the Automa. There's rules that are missing. There's different things that you need to sort of make decisions on in the game, and it doesn't give you clarity about how you make those decisions. Again, it gives you no... does it give you any ability to adjust the difficulty? I don't think it does give you the ability to adjust the difficulty. It gives you the ability to play against different types of Automa, which I always appreciate. That was really exciting. But I tried 3 different ones, and I didn't like any of them. I didn't even know if I was playing the game correctly as well, because some of the rules were just so ambiguous. All in all, absolutely not a game for me. But if you are somebody that loves set collection, loves worker placement, loves huge engine building material, and loves a big challenge in Automa, this I can imagine would be really fun. Also, if you like the unpredictability of not quite knowing how fast your opponent is going to play and trigger that end of the game, if you don't mind that and you're not bothered about being set by the number of rounds, I can imagine that this is going to tick so many boxes for you. And I absolutely see it. If my brain worked differently, I think this would be a fabulous game. But it just is just not for me. And on top of that, the cover of the box looks like it's been in the window for 5 years. It looks like it's sun bleached. And I know that is the design of the game, and it's sort of like a deserty feel type game, but I didn't like that aspect either. So that is Wayfarers of the South Tigris. I hope everyone else enjoys it a lot more than I do, because I know it is a brilliant game. It's just is not brilliant for me. So the next game on my list is going to be one that I will talk about more in detail, because I'm definitely going to be doing a solo playthrough of this one at some point. And it is a recent addition, so I haven't played it a massive amount, so I don't want to sort of go into too much detail as of yet, but just initial impressions. And this is Gloomhaven Buttons and Bugs. So if you don't know, Gloomhaven Buttons and Bugs is a solo only tiny version of Gloomhaven. You are going to be playing one of the Gloomhaven characters, and I believe they've put one of the Jewels of the Lion characters in there as well. I've not played Jewels of the Lion, but I think they've been taken into this game, and you are going to be playing a really small campaign. From what I remember, I think there's 15 different scenarios that you can go through, and there's a little story card that you can read, and you know what your goal is, usually to kill all the monsters in the room. And you flip the card, and it has a tiny little layout on of how you're going to be setting up your little cubes for your opponents. They're going to have their own specific card with their initiatives and their attacks and their health. And you're going to be putting the most minuscule of all miniatures that you've ever seen of your own character onto the board as well. So to play the game, you actually have a hand of 4 cards only. They have an A side and a B side, and on your turn you're going to be choosing 2 of these cards to play, and you're going to be activating the top action of one and the bottom action of another card. And once you have played the A sides of cards, it may be like an active ability or a permanent ability or whatever, it may come back into your hand. So you will be flipping those that are not permanent or round based and putting them back in. So you may have, at the end of your first turn, you may have 2 cards that have an A side on them and then 2 cards with a B side on them. Once you have played your B side cards, they're going to be going into your discard pile, and you may, if you are out of cards in your actual hand, you may rest. And so at that point, you're going to be discarding one of those from your discard pile. That's out of the game forever, and you'll be flipping all of the other cards to reveal their A sides again. So they're like double-edged sword, really. You can flip them, so you'll always have, each card will have 4 different abilities, 2 on the front, 2 on the back. On top of that as well, as you go through the campaign, you're going to be able to like level up. It's not really a level up system like you see in Frosthaven or Gloomhaven. It's scenario specific. So I've now hit the point where I am on scenario 5, I believe. And so that's now, it's like now scenario 5, you're level 2. And so you get the ability to upgrade one of your cards. Your health goes up. You also get a new card to represent your modifier. And I love the way that the modifiers are done as well, and the initiatives. It's very clever. So much like Gloomhaven, your initiative is going to be determined by what cards you play, and you can choose from the number on either of the cards that you play on your turn to be your initiative. But for the monsters, it's done by a die roll. So you'll be able to see on their cards, they'll have 3 different initiatives that they may have. And on their turn, you're going to be rolling the die to see, or at the beginning of the round rather, you're going to be rolling the die to see which one of those initiatives they are going to select for that round. So it gives you a little bit of extra edge in terms of planning, because you know it's going to be one of those 3 options, but also which helps to make it a little bit easier. It just sort of gets rid of some of the randomness a little bit that does frustrate me about Gloomhaven and Frosthaven. So I really appreciated that. On top of that, the very similar system is used in terms of the deck modifiers. So whenever you're attacking something, in Gloomhaven, Frosthaven, you would draw a card from your modifier deck, and that will adjust the amount of damage that you do. So it may double it, you may be a miss, you may -1 from your overall damage, and things like that. But in this game, you are rolling a die and checking on a table as to what outcome is. So it's going to be one of 3 outcomes, because it's a D6 and there's 2 identical faces on the D6. And then once you have resolved that modifier, you will be like ticking it down into like a table. So you'll be able to see there's going to be 3 separate outcomes for each die roll. And so you know what to expect. You know, like, oh, I could miss this round. Is that going to be detrimental to me? I may like kill this thing outright if I get that ×2 modifier this round. So again, that just helps to sort of decrease all of the like luck involved with Frosthaven and Gloomhaven, and I really like the addition of that. I think that's really clever. You also get the addition of items as well. So each scenario card, I believe it is, has like items written on the top and bottom of the cards, and so you can, as you go through the campaign, all of the scenarios that you've already seen, or the cards you've basically discarded and don't need anymore, you'll be able to select from the items that are on there to equip as part of your character. And they've been really useful so far. I really like the idea that you're just sort of collecting them as you go along, and you can select and take them as you need to. You don't have to worry about money or that extra faff that you definitely do in Frosthaven. I think that there's a lot of good quality of life features that Buttons and Bugs has implemented that maybe Frosthaven and Gloomhaven should have put into place instead of making it quite such a big game as it was. The only thing that I didn't particularly like about Buttons and Bugs, and it's such a small thing, and I do understand why they have done it is the fact that there is no actual rule book in the box. So the box is absolutely tiny. So, and Gloomhaven is a big game, so there's going to be a lot of rules. But all that you receive is a learn to play guide, and it absolutely works very well as a learn to play guide. It has a lot of information on it if this is your first time playing Gloomhaven. It allowed me to get up and running with the first scenario very quickly. But because I don't have a hard copy of the rules, I still haven't actually read the rules of Buttons and Bugs. So I don't know if I'm playing it 100% correctly a lot of the time, because I'm like, oh, I'll just, use the rules from Frosthaven and Gloomhaven. I can still remember them. I don't need to look at the ones from Buttons and Bugs. If I wanted to have a look at them, I have to sort of scan the QR code on my phone, which is always a pain because my phone doesn't have that capability a lot of the time. And then get the website up and then scroll down to what I want to see. And a lot of the time when I'm playing a board game, I do try and stay away from my phone. I just put it off to the side. I do feel a bit different when there's apps involved and they're giving you something to the game, whether that's narrative or sound effects or making decisions or managing something for you. I don't mind that at all. But the fact that the rule book is online, it's a living document, so I get that is a big positive. It's always going to be up to date and correct, but I just want it printed. I want a printed copy in my box, because then I would have read it and I absolutely know for certain that I am dealing with things correctly, because I did find that I did actually play a scenario incorrectly because I didn't read the rules to the leveling up properly. I didn't read the rules to the items properly, and so I was completely obliterated in one round because I had it on super difficult, and also I was like under-leveled by quite a lot. So yeah, that's one thing I just wish. But apart from that, Buttons and Bugs is a fabulous little game. I can't believe that they have managed to create a Gloomhaven-like experience in that sized box. It's absolutely incredible, and I'm so excited to do a playthrough of it. I think I want to find the best scenario to do a playthrough of, though. I feel like it needs to be one that's going to showcase the game. So I don't want to do scenario 1 because you're always going to see scenario 1. I want it to be a case that is not going to spoil like the atmosphere and the story too much. Is going to be probably kill everything, and I probably will, I don't know, won't give you any big spoilers. Not that there's going to be massive spoilers in a tiny little campaign really, but I want to showcase the game with like lots of items and lots of leveling up and things like that to really sort of show you what it can do, because I'm only just scratching the surface of that. I'm only in the first few scenarios. So once I get to the point where I'm at a really good point in it, I'll do a playthrough of that one and we'll have a look at that together, because I'm so impressed by it. It's such a fabulous little game, and I can't believe it's a travel size. It's tiny. So the next game that I want to talk about is a game, I don't know how to pronounce it properly. It's Tiwanaku or Tiwanaku. I don't know. I'm going to call it Tiwanaku because I think that sounds better. So Tiwanaku is what I think I would compare it to Turing Machine, but in a board game, bigger format. It tickles the same part of the brain for me as Turing Machine. Turing Machine is the travel-sized version that you want to do in 10, 20 minutes. And Tiwanaku is the big, I want to sit down for an hour board game version. If you are unfamiliar with Tiwanaku, I am so surprised that nobody really talks about it. I've never heard anyone mention it before. But this is a logic puzzle where you are taking the role of like a clan of people. I believe it's based on like real people. So it's all very like respectful of like the culture and the ideas from that sort of group. And the idea is that you are sort of respecting the goddess's sort of rules. So you're going to be exploring the area around you. And there's 4 different terrain types that you may find yourself in. So there's like sand, there's like mountainous regions, you'll have grasslands, and you'll have like dirt, mud type stuff. And in these areas as well, you're going to be able to discover crops or sow crops. And there's lots of different logic rules that you need to abide by in order to score points, or sort of when you're deducing things, there's logic rules that you need to abide by. Complicated little theme. Essentially on your turn, you're going to be doing a couple of things. You'll be either placing a meeple out onto the board, you may move a meeple that you've already got on the board, or you may take a meeple off of the board. apart from that, if you don't want to be doing any of those things, you may divine, which is you are deducing what crops are on particular spaces where your meeples are on the board. When you're moving your meeples around the board, you are going to be revealing different terrain types as you go. And you've got this really cool dial that you're using. It's a bit like the computer in Turing machine, but basically you've got coordinates on the board. So you've got your top animal in your, I think it's actually like an elemental thing. So it's like water and an animal. So water and a llama. And you've got this dial that you've put your scenario disc in, and by rotating the dial and rotating this piece of cardboard, you can open a window and it reveals to you what the terrain is that you're standing on. So some of the logic of this game, you are going to be discovering the 4 different terrain types, but the terrain areas that you're going to be discovering are going to be always within, or the size between 1 and 5. So you're never going to have a group of 6 grass tiles all together. It's always going to be between 1 and 5. So that's the first thing you've got to learn and remember, and when you're walking around the board and discovering things. The next is that the crops that are going to be on each area of the grassland, say, that you've got, that's going to be according to the size of the area. For example, if you're in a grassland area that you know is size 4, you know that there's going to be crops 1 to 4 within that area. You're never going to have 2 size 3 crops in the area. It's going to be 1, 2, 3, and 4. So adjacency rules, you're never going to have adjacent terrain groups next to each other, including diagonally. So if you have a grassland of group 1, size 1, in a corner, you're never going to have a grassland area of size 2 right next to it, because that would then be size 3, but even diagonally. So through walking around, you can sort of deduce where roughly all the terrain tiles are going to lie, and you've got to try and work out whether it's plausible that something else is going to pop up there unexpectedly, or things like that. On top of that, the crops as well can never be adjacent to each other, so you can have a size 1 crop adjacent to a size 1 crop, even if it's different terrain types. And so using all of those logic rules together, you will eventually be able to reveal all of the terrain on the board, use your logic to actually work out what terrain you're going to be finding, and also find what crops are going to be growing where. This is such a clever game, and if I'm honest, the first time I played it, I was a bit like, oh, this is good. But I found that the first half of the game was very strange in terms of how it flowed compared to the last half. Because the first half of the game, all you're going to be doing is literally putting your meeple down, revealing a terrain. Oh, it's grassland. You wouldn't know that at this point. Move again. Oh, it's mud. Cool. Next round. And so that was very slow. But I actually learned quite quickly that is a very, very crucial part of the game because of the way this scores. And I love this part of the game. I think it's so clever. I'll try and word it in a way that you'll understand it as well, because I am awful at explaining things. But basically, when you have revealed a certain terrain type, you're going to be scoring, you're going to be pushing up your marker on these tracks. And then you're going to be scoring points according to how many other terrain types of that amount you have discovered. So for example, if this is my 3rd grassland tile I have discovered, I'm going to be pushing my marker up from 2 to 3. And then I'm going to be scoring for every other type of terrain tile that I've scored 3 in so far. So if I've also discovered 3 mountains, there's 2 markers now at the 3 mark, so I'm going to be scoring 2 points. So that means that you are, on one hand, what you're trying to do is diversify. You want to try and find all these different types of terrain in a certain order, so you're going to be scoring all of these points as quickly as possible. And those points are so important for the game. I don't think you can actually win if you don't really sort of pay attention to that part, and so that is such a crucial part of the game. But on the other hand, what you're going to be trying to doing is actually discovering the same type of terrain tile, because once you know that you are certainly on a group 3 of grassland, you're going to be knowing a bit more certainty of what crops are going to be on the area. And you're going to be scoring in the latter half of the game, you're going to be divining, and you're going to be saying out loud, I think that there is a crop of value 3 on my space here. And you're going to be losing points if you are wrong, but gaining them if you are correct, according to the value of the crop. So you'll score 3 points if you are correct that there is a value 3 crop there. And so it is such a competitive game. And I've only played this one solo once. It's a very clever little solo game. And actually, I really want to play it a lot more solo. But the 2-player version of this was so good. I was so concerned with what my husband was doing the whole time. I was watching him like a hawk, like where he was moving, what meeples he was keeping in certain sections. He would do this horrible thing of sitting on the value 5 crops for the right moment to 100% check that it was definitely a value 5 and scoring those 5 points. He was very good at that. And so you can sort of block people as well. A fabulous 2-player game. I don't think it would be very good at 3 to 4 players because there's definitely a lot of deduction going on. You can, I guess, play it with pen and paper to, as soon as you know what the answer is to a certain area, you can sort of write it down. But we didn't play it like that because we wanted that extra element of risk, as in like, you can't remember what that was now and you've got to work it all out again, and I've made a mistake now, etc. We enjoyed that slight extra push. So I don't think that 3 to 4 players would be that fun because it's definitely going to take a little bit of time and there's going to be some downtime, but highly enjoyable at solo and 2-player. And I was a bit worried about getting the retail version of the game on the basis that it has quite a lot less scenarios in it as compared to the Kickstarter version. I don't know how many scenarios the Kickstarter version has. It might be like an extra 10 or something like that. It was quite significant. But in all honesty, I've played, I think, 5 different scenarios now, and I could play scenario 1 again now and not remember a thing about it. Unless you're going to be somebody that is playing this game every single day for months on end, you're not going to remember what's going on. And of course, unless you've got a huge photographic memory as well, it's unlikely that you're going to be finding yourself replaying the same scenario and remembering where things are going. So I wouldn't worry about that, and I'm having a great time with the retail edition. On top of that as well, the components are super gorgeous, everything is beautiful, and it's just such a breath of fresh air. It's such a unique game, and I've been really enjoying it. So the next game on my list is a new addition to me as well. I've got quite a few new additions. It was a birthday, so I had a few gifted to me. I don't want to go into this one in too much detail because I feel like I need to play this one a little bit more to get a better feel for it. But first of all, I thought it was a little bit too simple for me. I'd enjoyed it, but I thought, there's not too much here. And I've played it another 2 times since. And it's going up there for me. I do very much enjoy it. I think it fits the purpose of like a more chill game. I can imagine it's really nice for a Sunday morning with a sip of coffee. And that game is Meadow. You're probably quite surprised that I have taken so long to actually play Meadow. I'm surprised that it's taken me so long to play Meadow as well. But if you do not know, Meadow is a beautiful game of nature. So you are sort of building up a tableau of various habitats and building an ecosystem, basically. So you may have like a grassland habitat and a leaf-fall habitat or a woodland habitat, and you're going to be attracting different animals into that. So you may place a bug on top of your grassland habitat, and that will give you the bug symbol. And so then you may be able to attract a bird which needs to eat the bug and place the card of the bird over the bug and build this like food chain up from there. So it's all about sort of set collection and icon collection and things like that. And I did say from Wayfarers that wasn't really my sort of thing, but this is just much more of a light-hearted version of that. You're going to be scoring points at the end of the game according to what cards and what animals you are attracting into your like habitat area. You also have like a surroundings area where you may discover certain different locations. So it may be like a flower meadow or something like that, and then you can flip a token where you could journey from. It's like a road. So originally I was under the impression that this was just a little bit too light for me. It's definitely lighter than I tend to go, but the more I've played it, and I haven't played it that much yet, so I don't want to sort of, cement this into stone or anything, but I actually appreciate now how the game unfolds in its sort of situations. So for example, you have also scoring criteria that you can sort of get bonuses for. So you have different symbols out around this campfire, and if you get the 2 neighboring symbols, you can put a scoring token between them. But you only get those symbols if they are present and available in your tableau. And some of them only appear in the later game. So you may have like beasts or I'm not really sure what the symbol is called. It looks like a wolf basically, but higher predators. And they're only going to come out in the latter half of the game because you actually swap a couple of decks of cards around. So first of all, you're going to be dealing with one of the deck of cards which has a lot of the lower aspects of the food chain in, and then they're going to develop into the latter half of the food chain, and you're going to be having birds of prey that come out, or like bigger predators that come out, and be able to attract them into your ecosystem as well. And so I didn't actually appreciate the first time I played this at how intricately that was all linked. And it was actually quite nice to sort of think. I played a game with my husband yesterday, and the cards that were out on the tableau at the time for you to choose from were actually really not useful to both of us. We didn't want anything there. So what that forced us to do was have a look at the scoring criteria. We both needed a bird of prey and plan for it. So I was trying to think, what's this bird of prey that's going to eventually come out, hopefully, what are they going to want to eat? They're going to want to eat like insects and like smaller birds maybe. And so I was actually trying to get a better ecosystem and more food available to it. So for when that bird does come out, I can grab it and play it almost immediately. And so I thought that was a really neat little aspect of the game that I didn't appreciate the first time that I played it. And the more I play it, the more I appreciate that. This is definitely lighter than most other things in my collection. And the solo mode was okay. It was pretty nice. It was very chill. The only thing that happens is that you will have tokens that are going to be like blocking spaces on the board. So they're going to be drawing cards, and there'll be like a total that you need to compare your score to, and you will only win essentially if you beat them. And then you'll have a tally according to how well you've done. I wanted a little bit more from the solo mode, I think. And I think I'll have a look on Board Game Geek because I'm sure there's going to be somebody that sort of pushed this game even more in the solo direction, because I think that it has so much potential here. And I know that there's going to be an adventure book that comes out for this game this year, and I would be very interested in trying that, especially if that allows you to play solo in a different way. I think that this one would have benefited with like a journal book like Keystone North America had. Oh my gosh, this game would be fabulous with something like that allows you to really immerse yourself in the artwork, because this game is just absolutely stunning to look at with all the watercolor like pictures that you have. If this had something like this would be really up there. But other than that, it's just a really nice chill game, and I did really enjoy it. But it's definitely one that is a weeknight, I am tired game rather than I want a brain burny, crunchy game to sink my teeth into. And to finish off then, I want to just talk very briefly about a couple of games I played at a recent board game cafe that I visited. And the games that we played there were Shifting Stones, we played Chai, and we played Barenpark. So I'll start off with Shifting Stones because there's not too much to say about that one. It's quite a simple game. I actually thought it was going to be a bit more in depth than what it was. I think I have high expectations for a lot of these games. It was fine. But basically you have scoring criteria in your hand, and you have a 3x3 grid of coloured tiles, basically. And these tiles are double-sided. So you may have pink on one side and I don't know what's opposite pink. Maybe blue. Let's say blue. So you've got pink on one side, blue on the other. So when you dish them out, it's all random to set it up. You may have like a blue on the top row and a pink on the bottom, and you can flip them during the game if you want to reveal the different colour. On your turn, you're going to be able to discard cards from your hand in order to swap two adjacent tiles with each other, flip them, or I'm not even sure what the other option was. Basically, you can manipulate the 3x3 grid as much as you want. So you can discard scoring criteria just from the game, not score them, to do flipping and reveal the different colours and move them all around. And you can also then trade in or put your card on your tableau being like, there you go, there's that situation right now. There's the blue and pink and blue in a column. And it's very orientation based. So it has to be like in that particular area or facing that particular way. So it was a very quick game. The game ends when I think you have 10 scoring cards in front of you for a 2-player game. I'm not sure you can play this one solo out the box. I'm sure that there is a solo variant somewhere. But yeah, ended very quickly. It was quite nice. Not too much more to say about it. It was just a nice little filler game. Didn't really sort of blow me away or anything, but I'm very glad to have played it to say it was very pretty as well. I just enjoy playing all sorts of games just so I can say that I've played them and just fill my head with all of these experiences. The next one that we played in the cafe was Chai, and I feel like we were missing something from this game, if I'm totally honest. I mean, the production quality of Chai is out of this world. It was absolutely gorgeous. Everything looked lovely, so colourful, and it was really satisfying when you're brewing your tea to put them in these like big chunky cups. Really, really cool. But I just felt that there was just something missing. You were collecting materials to brew these teas, like flavorings and things like that. There was just not enough decision space there. You could sort of see what everyone was doing. I played it 2-player again. So you just collect some tiles and then be able to satisfy an order. You get some money from it. And that was about it. And so I was a bit disappointed with Chai. I was expecting a little bit more strategy behind it. I know it is a lighter game anyway, but there just didn't seem to be anything deep there. It was very much a very light decision making. I would say it's like a bit of a superficial game where you are much more interested in how it looks and how the components feel as compared to investing in the actual gameplay, because I just didn't find the gameplay was there for me. But I do feel like we were missing something. And maybe we were. There was one particular rule that we were confused of, and it doesn't clarify anywhere how to clear that one up. So we just sort of moved past it and pretended that one thing was true when we weren't sure whether it was. So maybe we were missing something a little bit, but just didn't impress us, basically. But the one that did impress us was Barenpark. That is such a cool little game. Basically, you are creating your own park, your like theme park. It's not really like a roller coaster type theme park. It's like a zoo, essentially, with various other attractions in. But you have a grid to start with, a tile with like grids on, and you are trying to gain polyomino tiles on your turn to cover various symbols on your tile. So, for example, you may have a T-shaped polyomino tile that you place on your starting board, and it may cover, I can't really remember, like a green symbol and like a building symbol. So if you have a green symbol, you may gain a green tile into your like hand, essentially, to place on a future turn if you want to. And the building tile may allow you to sort of go to a different section of the board and get a really fancy like polyomino tile, or you may extend your board further and grow your park. And so it was quite a quick game. It lasted about half an hour, maybe 20 minutes or so. But it was very clever in terms of the spatial puzzle aspect with the polyomino tiles, and also trying to juggle the fact that you wanted certain polyominoes because they scored more points, but also you wanted certain ones to fit in certain areas because there were parts of your map that you couldn't cover. So that was really interesting as well. A very spatial based puzzle. And it was really charming. Really enjoyed it. And I would definitely say that it sort of scratches the same itch as Patchwork, which is another well-known 2-player polyomino game. I believe Barenpark plays up to 4, maybe 5. I'm not sure if it was 5-player. I think it's up to 4. So I would probably say that Barenpark is probably the winner there over Patchwork, but because I play mostly solo and 2-player, Patchwork is a big hit in my collection. But yeah, very impressed with Barenpark, and I would definitely want to play it a bit more. Again, I don't think it's solo, so I would anticipate that there is a way to play it solo on Board Game Geek, but it's just not something that I had time to investigate at the time. So the only other ones that I played during June are ones that I've spoken about before or are so simple that I don't want to particularly go into. But Grand Austria Hotel I played once. One of my favourite games of all time. Fantastic game, and I've spoken a lot about it on the channel. Played some more Glass Road. Played some Love Letter as well. We do play that one 2-player, and I know that a lot of people would never recommend it a 2-player, and it's definitely one that is not really intended for 2-player count. But we have a lot of fun anyway. It was late at night that we played this one, and it was just I really want to play a board game, and my husband agreed. So I was like, well, yeah, let's go with it. Patchwork we played once, and Uno we played once as well. So not too bad. I've got a lot of new games, to me, and a lot going on in terms of board gaming. I've got a few from different people that I'm covering at some point in the future. And I'm also got one more video to release for the Uwe Rosenberg series, as well as the final ranking video. So a lot to cover over the next few months. I know that publishing videos has been a bit slow on the channel lately, and that's various reasons. I've had a few holidays going on, lots of other things going on, and so I'm hopefully trying to keep up the pace a little bit more and get some new content out for you guys. But anyway, I'm going to wrap that up because I think this is quite a long video now and I didn't want it to be that long. I hope you enjoyed me going through the games that I have played from April all the way to June. Hopefully I will have another video out in a couple of months along the same tracks as this, going through the next few months for us now. But otherwise, have a lovely rest of your day, and I will see you on the next video. So thank you very much for watching. Bye bye.